It was a car pulled up, 3 young white guys.
Wow.
The windows came down, get out of my neighborhood, N-word, started throwing rocks and cans at me. So I pedaled home, threw the bike under the garage, carport, ran into the house, out of breath. My mom's like, boy, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Boy, what's wrong with you? Nothing. The reason I didn't say anything about it was because this was the happiest day that I'd ever seen my mother. We moved into this new house, and I felt like if I shared what had just happened to me, that I would be ruining her day. The whole point at the end of the day is when it's all over and said and done, there's never a straight line to how you get there. People get there how they get there.
Trust me, I get it. You're feeling the pressure to keep your faith separate from your work, worried that pursuing your God-given dreams might be seen as selfish or misguided. For far too long, we've been held back by a world that tells us that faith and ambition don't mix, that our divinely inspired visions are just wishful thinking. But here's what I've discovered. Our faith isn't a liability in our leadership. As a matter of fact, it's the source of our strength and wisdom. When we fully integrate our leadership with our Christian values, then and only then do we tap into that unshakable divine power. The real challenge is navigating how to boldly pursue our purpose while staying anchored in our faith. And that's exactly what the Beacon Show is all about. Each week, we bring you biblical wisdom and practical strategies from true beacons, Christian leaders who are illuminating the world. And it's also that you can let your light shine brighter and brighter. I'm Tamara Jackson, and this is The Beacon Show.
Welcome to The Beacon Show, where wisdom meets faith and success finds its voice. I'm Tamara Jackson, the CEO and founder of BEACONSHIP, where we believe in the power of faith-driven innovation to transform lives and communities. We're excited to have with us today T. Dallas Smith, a man who has broken through barriers in commercial real estate and is on a mission to inspire others to believe that they can do the same. T. Dallas, thank you for being here with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I've had the pleasure of getting to know your team, and they helped me to understand that this has truly been a journey for you. And I'm sure the things that I've read online barely scratched the surface.
Yes.
But we had a conversation right before we started recording about your grandmother and your mom and the role that they played in your life.
Yeah.
Can you take us back in time a little bit to what it was like growing up as a child and how they helped to encourage you?
Sure. So I never met, this is my great-grandmother who raised my mother. My mother her name's Lurleen Smith. Everybody called her Lena. My great-grandmother was Lucci Farmer. Lucci was born a slave. And I guess freedom came around the time she was 3 or 4 years old. But when she was little, they still stayed with the former slave owners as a sharecropper. The little girl used to play teacher, school with my great-grandmother. I think they're 4 or 5 years old. Through playing alphabet and all this kind of thing, she learned how to read. Not only did she learn how to read, she really became a scholar in the church and was one of the first black female leaders in the AME church. It wasn't recognized at the time, but leadership, she was always put up front, and she would speak all around town. They would send her on trips to Cincinnati and different places. It was a big deal. But she used to pray. This is the story my mother told me. She used to pray for her seed, her children's children, kids who weren't even born yet, which me, right, and my sisters, that we would see the world, that we would impact the world, that we would always keep God first. And so a lot of what I'm doing now at 62, I feel it's what was prayed for me years ago before I was even born. And I got in commercial real estate when I was 19. And so the room I just left a minute ago, I started this thing with John O'Neill called CRE Studio. And the whole point was to bring exposure to people who didn't know much about commercial real estate. When we first started, it was a handful of black people in the room. Today, it was like a rainbow, if you will, of cultures in this one room. Wow. And the impact of it it hit me all of a sudden just looking at it. And our guest today was a guy named Dwayne Streeter, the global head of real estate for Yahoo. He shared his story, which was a fascinating story. But the whole point is that people would see themselves in their story, in these other people's stories. And we've had Egbert Perry, Steve Seelig, Meredith Leapley. We've had some big people come through. The whole point at the end of the day is when it's all over and said and done, there's never a straight line to how you get there. People get there how they get there. It was very motivating today. And I felt my mother's presence, my great-grandmother's presence, again, who I never met. But I know she's grateful and smiling that her seed has, traveled the world in rooms that I wouldn't normally be in. I've been appointed by the governor on 2 boards here in this state. I know the mayor, a lot of politicians. These are things that would have not been done. My mother grew up in a time where there was colored and white water fountains. So to be in the rooms I'm in today, grateful for God and just a praying great-grandmother and mother.
Mm. So I'm curious, you made the decision to go into commercial real estate at 19.
Yes.
Did you always know that that's what you wanted to do?
No. So we moved I'm in Atlanta. I tell people I'm Atlanta born, Atlanta bred. When I die, I'll be Atlanta dead.
Oh, wow.
Right. So
You're
I'm
serious.
I'm from the A. I'm from real Atlanta. So I grew up about 3 miles from Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where it is today. And I tell this story. In 1976, we moved to College Park. In College Park, we were the first black family on our street.
Wow.
Grew up in an all-black neighborhood, never dealt with anything racial because it was in an all-black neighborhood. The day we moved to College Park, we were closing the moving van gate and turned around. There was a white family across the street. I guess they waited for us to see them. It was a husband, wife, son, daughter, and a golden retriever. I remember like it was yesterday. They had a for sale sign. They waited for us to see him. They stomped it, put it into the ground, ran it to the door, closed it, slammed the door. Now, I'm so naive, I said to my dad, that's ironic. We're moving in, they're moving out. So my dad said, boy, get in the house. Again, I'm 14. It was over my head. Never dealt with anything racial, so really didn't know what just happened. Had no clue. So how naive I was, I said, Dad, I'm going to take my bike, I'm going to ride around the neighborhood. That's how naive I was. I didn't make it good around the block. And there was a car pulled up, 3 young white guys. Wow. The windows came down. Get out of my neighborhood, N-word, start throwing rocks and cans at me. Now, the neighborhood I was from, if anything happened like that, it would have been because you did something to somebody. So my 14-year-old brain is saying, hey, I just moved here. You got the wrong guy. Rocks and cans kept coming, so I realized, okay, this is something different. I didn't even know what this was. So I pedaled home, threw the bike under the garage, carport, ran into the house, out of breath. My mom's like, boy, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Boy, what's wrong with you? Nothing. The reason I didn't say anything about it was because this was the happiest day I'd ever seen my mother. We moved into this new house. My dad's in the corner painting, touch-up paint. My sisters are helping my mother put these curtains up. And I felt like if I shared what had just happened to me, that I would be ruining her day. So I swallowed that razor blade. That's how I describe it. And my mother passed in 2020, my dad died in 2010. I never shared that story with him. In fact, when my book came out last year, 2023, called In the Black, I share that story. So my sisters, for the first time, read that story. And one sister's 5 years older, the other's 7 years older. I said, "What? We never knew this story." I said, I didn't want to ruin the day. But the best thing that came through that process was I'm at Lakeshore High School, less than 5% black folks. It was very obvious they didn't want you there. I mean, it was not a welcoming place. But while I was there, I met 2 young guys, black guys, who happened to be brothers, Stacy and Troy Gibbons. One's 14, the other's 13. They're as happy to see me as I'm happy to see them. So, waving from afar, they're waving at me, and we connected. They invited me over their house. I think maybe that next day I'd come over to their house to visit. Their mother's waiting for me. Or, everybody called me Ty growing up. Say, Ty. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, Stacy and Troy, they're upstairs. You'll hear them. Where you hear the noise, that's where they are. So they're in there, and they're fussing. This is the argument between a 13 and a 14-year-old brother. You won't be able to afford a Porsche. You'll just be in your residency. Wow. At this time, I'm looking at both walls. They had a twin bed on both sides. What we would call vision boards now is what they had on both sides. Yeah. They were both going to go to Morehouse, so they had Morehouse pendants on both sides. The pictures of their house, they had everything laid out, everything planned. And I remember leaving their house thinking, dude, you got to get your stuff together.
You're behind.
I'm so behind. I mean, you're 14, you've been around your whole life, you don't know, you hadn't figured out what you're going to be.
Man,
so
that's amazing.
It was that positive, it was seeing that was really positive peer pressure for me that I needed to figure something out. So to answer your question, I was still kind of trying to figure this thing out. Yeah. I've graduated from high school, freshman in college, still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. But that summer, 1980, right before I went to college, went away to Tennessee State first before Georgia State, Forbes magazine came out with the list of the richest people, 400 people. Didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. All I knew I wanted to make a lot of money. That was a common thing. So I took a Forbes magazine and I just studied what the richest people did. And primarily it came down to 4 categories. They were in the oil industry, investments, technology, or real estate. As I said, I'm Atlanta born, Atlanta bred. When I die, I'll be Atlanta dead. I want to stay in Atlanta. Oil would have taken me to Texas. Investments would have taken me to New York. Technology just wasn't my thing. So it left me with this thing called real estate. Didn't want to work on the weekends. So that knocked out residential. So I literally just backed into process of elimination. When I speak to kids, when they don't know what they want to be when they grow up kind of thing, I say, okay, well, just start with what you know you don't want to do.
I love
How many of you want to dig ditches? Nobody wants to dig ditches. I mean, want to work at McDonald's rest of your life? Nobody. So I said, go through that list of things you don't want to do. Let's see what's left. And so literally that's how I ended up finding this thing called commercial real estate.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Beacon Show. There are others like you that need encouragement in their journey as they are pursuing what God has called them to. And one step that you can take to help ensure that they receive the support they need is to rate and review. It only takes a few seconds and it can make an eternal difference. You know how important it is to have someone in your corner that believes in you and wants to see you succeed. So take a moment to rate and review today. So what was the path back then when you decided I'm going to go into commercial real estate? What did that mean your next steps were?
So again, I thank God for common sense. My mother always prayed for us to have common sense. In my mind, I needed to reach out to somebody influential. My logic was somebody influential would know somebody in commercial real estate. And sure enough, it's true. My sister was dating this guy, Michael Hightower. Michael Hightower was a city council member at College Park. In fact, he was the youngest city council member of any council in the United States at that time. So I called Michael, asked him if he knew somebody. He did. A guy named Bill Colmer. Bill Colmer, I told him, hey, I want to get in commercial real estate. Is it possible for me to shadow you? He said, well, we'll work it out. It may not be me, but we'll work it out. So it was a guy, oh my God, I'm going blank on his name right now. It'll hit me. Steve Galtney. Steve Galtney allowed me to come shadow him. In fact, we were out in this area. We're in Buckhead. And he's showing me different properties that he was listing, he sold, and clients he was representing, this kind of thing. He said, I'm going to take you to this meeting. Don't say anything. Just sit in the room. When it's all said and done, you can ask me questions. Sure. So this is near Lenox Mall. And it was a center called Around Lenox. Now, what I didn't understand at the time was he was representing the tenant. The guy we were meeting with was representing the landlord. And so they sat there, started negotiating. They write down on a piece of paper, hand it to him. The guy take the paper and tear it up. The guy writes something else, hand it, he'd tear it up. So they're going back and forth on the number that would work. And eventually they shook hands, then we left. So he said, Dallas, you have any questions? I said, yeah. Looks like, start off a little slow, but it's like you came to an agreement. He said, yes. Yeah. I said, I just have one question. He said, what's that? How much money are you going to make? So he laughed. He said, I'll make $30,000 off that transaction. This is 1982.
Wow.
Median income for a family of 4 was $28,000. And I just saw this guy make $30,000. And I said, hell, I can write on a piece of paper.
Like, this is the job
I
for
can
me.
do that. And so he was kind enough. He was like, hey, we're a small firm. We can't really hire you, but let me take you to lunch. There he introduced me to a guy named Tom Thompson. Tom happened to be, well, I'm at Georgia State now. I've transferred back here. And Tom was 19 years old, white guy. We had that in common. He's at Georgia State. I told him what I was trying to do. A couple of days later, he called me and said, I met somebody. He said, send me your resume. This is back in the day when you had to go to a typesetter to get a resume.
Yeah.
Not like you can do it now. And I get my resume to him, but he told me the guy's name was Thomas W. Tift. I said, like Tift, Georgia, Tift County, Tift College? He said, yes. And that's in South Georgia. So one thing I know, there's Atlanta and then there's Georgia.
Okay.
So I knew my first name is Tanalo. That's the T in my name, Tanalo Smith. There's no middle name, no nothing. That list of people I went through, it was T. Boone Pickens, had all these different names. So I saw how people with money would use these initials, right?
I see.
So I said, all right, T and Smith is pretty generic. Nobody knows the race of that person. I said, but I need something in the middle. The hottest TV show in 1982 was Dallas.
Dallas.
So I just put together T, Dallas
hilarious.
Smith, and that's how the name was created. So gave that to my white buddy. I whitewashed the resume, which before that wasn't even a term. I just knew at 19 I couldn't put Tennessee State on there. I couldn't say I ran track or played basketball. So I had on there that I played golf, which was not true, but I play golf now. I say,
you made it true.
Yeah, these are all prophetic statements. It just hadn't come true yet. Squash, chess.
Squash. Okay.
The whitest things I could think of. That's what went on that resume. The idea was at the end of the day I was going to look white on paper.
Yeah.
And it worked. And so the day my buddy says, "Hey, Tiff loves your resume. He wants you to give him a call." So now I got to be on the phone call.
Oh.
I can't sound like a brother on the phone. So in 1982, the whitest white man in America to me was Johnny Carson.
Oh, my goodness.
And I could do Johnny Carson cold at 19.
You did not impersonate Johnny
I don't
Carson.
even remember what he sounds like now. But at 19, I had Johnny Cole.
Oh, my goodness.
So Mr. Tiff says, well, Dallas, I love what I hear. Let's get together tomorrow. So I said,
Can't
okay.
wait to hear what happens now.
So I show up, blue suit, white shirt, red tie. And I'm coming in probably 20 feet from the front door to where the receptionist was sitting. She kind of gave me this. I'm coming in. She goes, can I help you? I said, yes, I'm here to see Mr. Tiff. And she said, and you are? I said, I'm Dallas Smith. Literally when I said that, her body just went back, kind of slow motion. The chair went back. It hit the wall. If the wall wasn't there,
I can see it.
She would have hit the ground. Boom. She straightened herself up. She got up. She walked backwards. She's looking at me, but she walked backwards like that. Closed the door. Then she came back. Arms folded. She said, Mr. Tiff, we'll see you now. The story goes, now Tiff, he's since deceased. I miss him. But he doesn't know that I know the story. The story goes, he went back and said, Dallas is here, but he's black. And said, Mr. Tiff went, oh, shit. Well, since he's here, let him come on back. But this will be the shortest interview in the history of mankind.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I'll go back, and Mr. Tiff is Rhett Butler from Gone with the Wind. Good-looking guy. He looks like money. And he was 56 years old at the time. Which seemed very old to me at the time. But now me at 62.
Now you take that all back,
he was a young man. He was just a youngster. But he said, Dallas. I said, hey, Mr. Tiff, very nice to meet you. And I walk around the table to go sit where he wanted me to sit. He had an 8x10 picture on his desk of Ronald Reagan, black and white. And it was signed to my dear friend Tommy from Runny.
Oh, wow.
So as I sat down, I said, oh, you're a Reagan fan? He said, yes, I am. I said, so am I. It's like a deer in headlights. Because Reagan wasn't that popular with the brothers.
Of
so,
course.
But the first time I ever voted was for Ronald Reagan because it was 1980 when I could vote. And it had nothing to do, quite frankly, with Republicans or Democrats. I was too young to really even know the difference. What it was Jimmy Carter, God bless him, from Georgia, governor. But interest rates were 17%. We had gas lines every other day. In my mind, I was going to be living at home with my parents until I was 50 at this rate. So it wasn't a slight against Jimmy. It just had to be, the other guy had to be better in my head.
Okay.
And quite frankly, for the commercial real estate industry, it was. And so Tiff was like a deer in headlights because we started talking about Reaganomics and stuff like that. We talked an hour about Reagan.
Interesting.
And he happened to have the same tennis racket I had, which was the first graphite racket that came out from Pro Kinex. The name of that racket was the Black Ace. We both had the Black Ace, which was a $300 racket in 1982. Turns out he was a big tennis player, played for Georgia Tech. He graduated from Georgia Tech, was a Naval Academy guy. 2 hours later, he comes out. After I leave, the story goes, he tells the secretary, I'm going to do something I thought I'd never do. I'm going to hire that young man. So Mr. Tiff brought me into the real estate business. I tell people he was my branch Ricky. He put me in the game. The real magical thing about that whole thing is about the power of God. Mr. Tiff's father was the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan in Tifton. So imagine, so this is why I always tell people, and my parents taught me this, never judge a book by its cover. Meet people here. Let God do the rest. 43 years later, I'm sitting here talking to you about this thing I've been in.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hope you are enjoying this episode of The Beacon Show. It is our mission here at BEACONSHIP to empower you, the Christian visionary, to achieve the impact that you desire to create in the world. So we want to come alongside you and provide the training, the mentorship, and the funding readiness that you need to grow and scale your impact. I'd invite you to join our mailing list where you can receive additional insights beyond this episode to build on what you've learned here today and take you to the next level. So go ahead, subscribe today, and we'll continue to keep you motivated and inspired to move forward in all God has called you to. What an amazing journey that God has had you on.
It's quite something. So grateful, so grateful. I just really get to the point. I just try to listen and just do. I hear what God has me to do, and then I do it. When I started my company, I had no money, and I started off with a guy who was a sophomore at Morehouse, who is now the president of this company. Because God told me, raise him up as a son. When you turn 60, this will be the one who will run your company. So when I turned 60,
it back then. Wow.
2 weeks within me meeting him, that's what God told me. So that was always my North Star. It was real clear to me. As clear as I'm talking to you, I was real clear on what I was supposed to do. But I had no money, and I'm saying, because I lost it all during the recession. I was like, God, you want me to do all this? How am I going to do it? You want me to get licensed? He said, enlarge the tent. So I know I'm supposed to get licensed in multiple states, but I have no money. I said, how do I do it? He said, one state at a time. 9 states later. And he covered me every day. So I just got married too. I have to tell you this. Because I would every day, like if I needed $30 or $40 for, fingerprints for this state or whatever, I didn't have any money, but I get a check in the mail for $50, something I did a while back. Next day I need $200 for something. I don't have the money, but I get $200 come to me from somewhere else. So literally for an entire year, that happened. But I'm frustrated, and I have a real blowout fight with God. So much so that my dog ran out of the room.
He said, I'm out.
He was out. I was at home by myself, and I was fighting I'm looking here, and I'm fighting with God. Being the father that he is, he just let me vent. In the midst of me doing this, I said, man, you got me looking out here crazy. My wife's, I'm having this whole thing. When I finally paused, because I'm kind of out of breath, God said, recite the Lord's Prayer. I said, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. At that moment, I realized he'd been carrying me for an entire year, day by day.
Day by day.
I fell on my knees and just repented because he covered me that way. And the point of that, I understand it now, so that I would really understand who's in charge and whose I am, who I belong to, that he was going to be true to the statement that he gave me. So fast forward now 18 years later, Leonte's president of the company. We're growing the company in a way that this kid he's an old soul. He's been here before. So I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to be here with you. And if anybody hears a story, to understand what God has for you, it's for you, period. Period.
Period.
Period.
So now you are helping others in the commercial real estate field.
Yes.
What is the number one piece that you give of advice that you give to them to help them to get to the next level?
There's no quit. The only person you're really competing with, like a lot of people like, well, Satan this, I don't give any credit to Satan for anything. Because at the end of the day, I understand that power is in me. He's giving me the power. I'm either going to, if you say you're going to win, you're going to win. If you say you're going to lose, you're going to lose. The power of the tongue. Life and death in the power of the tongue. So what you say to yourself on a regular basis is the only thing that really matters. I don't really care what other people say about me. That's, I get accolades, that's all nice and good. But at the end of the day, what I believe, what I think about myself is the most important thing. And I know that I am a son to the Father.
And that's what you tell yourself when you have those moments.
Ups, downs, sideways. I know that's to be the case. In fact, if I feel like I'm getting so much of the wrong thing coming my way, I know I'm spot on. Enemy's not messing with anybody who ain't doing nothing.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
You're not a threat to anything. But, it's about hearing and doing for me. Yeah.
So legacy, let's talk about that. I know we're going to run out of time in a few minutes. I want to get this in because it sounds like you've been crafting your legacy from the very beginning in some ways. So how do you even reconcile that word? What do you think about when you think about legacy?
I'm real clear. At the end of the day, I want this industry to look like the UN. I want it to represent people of all shades. This is the only industry where I know you can be broke on a Friday and rich on a Monday. And you're not singing, dancing, or playing sports. So if you look at the wealthiest people in the world, people talk about the tax, we're in the middle of an election, one candidate's, they're going to tax the billionaires. It's never going to happen. If you ever read the tax code, it's set up for people who make money.
Yeah.
The richest people, some of the richest people that say the wealthiest place, you want to get rich in America, become a congressman or a senator. So you're going to ask those very people to vote to change the tax. It's not going to happen. The reality of it is we just got to learn how to make more money.
I love that.
So, at the end of the day, it's not, you can come to me every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I give you a bowl of soup. You do this every day for 30 years, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Then one day I'm not there. What happens to you, right? But if I can teach you how to fish, you can feed yourself and your family. That is the legacy for me. No disrespect to affordable housing, all that. The real issue is not affordable housing. We need people making more money. So let's teach people how to fish. Leonte, that kid, just turned 40.
Oh, wow, he's young.
And he's killing it. Killing it. Killing it.
Killing it.
He's learned how to fish on a whole nother level.
But that means that you played a critical role for him in being able to carry the vision forward of what you have built. Why is that so important?
I'd say God played a role for him. I was a vessel to do the thing that he's called me to do, period. I'm going to do that till they put me in the grave. Yeah. Period. I grew up off of Simpson Road in Atlanta, Georgia, West Side, 30314. Okay?
Yeah.
If this kid can do what God said he's supposed to do, my message to everybody is that you can do the thing that God's called you to do. And what are you waiting for? You were born with everything you need. Everything you need. You came in this world with everything you need.
Just do it, right?
Just do it. The Swiss Army knife, you got everything you need on it.
Yeah.
It's in you. The question is whether or not you will tap into that. But I see it. I see people who believe they'll do it, and they do it. People who don't believe, and they don't. And I hate to make it that simple, but as a man thinketh, so was he.
So was he. Yeah. And you're living proof that it's possible.
Oh my God.
There were so many odds stacked against you, but you believed in yourself. You believed in the prayers of your great grandmother.
And I know people who were trying to get rid of me and do it. Yeah. I'm still here.
Still here.
Don't mess with God's anointing.
Amen. Amen.
All right? No, don't.
Well, T. Dallas, this has been an amazing interview. I want to thank you on behalf of our audience for all of the wisdom that you've shared with them and how you've encouraged them to stop waiting and to move forward.
Yes.
We'll be watching to see what is next for you and how you continue to make an impact.
You and I both watch what God has in store. I'm waiting.
We'll see what God is going to do.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us for another episode of The Beacon Show. If you've enjoyed this conversation with T. Dallas Smith, be sure that you subscribe today, because this is just the beginning. There are more great interviews where you hear from change makers that are making a difference in the world. So subscribe today, like and share, spread the message. It is possible and you can do it. God bless.